Hi everybody, I'm Suzanne Barrett Justis, and in this video we're going to paint a gorilla. Now I'm really excited about this particular piece because let's face it, a girl doesn't get to paint a lot of gorillas, at least this one doesn't. So this is coming from a client of mine who does a lot of travel, and she's giving it as a gift, a holiday gift to her sister, and the two of them like to travel to Rwanda, Tanzania. I think they travel quite a bit, and it's wonderful that she's wanting to gift her sister with this present. And they got to go to Rwanda and see the gorillas. And I guess these are the lowland gorillas, and they went on a safari and got to, so the photo reference that I'm working from was actually taken by my client. And so I'll show you the photo reference. And you can see how intimate this photo is. It's just an absolutely beautiful photograph, and I'm so excited to get to do the portrait. So stay tuned, stick with me, and watch it to the end. You'll get to see the finished piece. So if you are my subscribers, thank you so much, and if you're not, you know, go ahead and subscribe, and let's go ahead and jump into this little lady from Rwanda. First, I'm just going to do a very loose little pencil sketch and just kind of blocking in where I'm putting the gorilla. I just need to know where to put the paint. But you will quickly see how this sketch morphs. I'm excited about this piece because, well, let's face it, it's not all often that I get to paint gorillas. And as you saw earlier, I just kind of did a very loose sketch and of this beautiful creature right here. And this is a commission, if I hadn't mentioned it earlier. And it's really cool because this client and her sister like to go, they travel. And, you know, they go to Rwanda, Tanzania, all these amazing places in Africa and capture some of the wildlife. And they were able to go into Rwanda to see these gorillas. So how awesome is that? So here's our palette. We have ultramarine blue, dioxazine purple, indanthrene blue, deep violet, king's blue. I have a really runny ivory black, Payne's gray, a little titanium white, sap green. I have Italian green umber. I have that is bright green lake, and Shiva citron yellow, which is like it's a good substitute for a cadmium green. So, you know, this is our lineup. You know me, I will be adding more paints as I go, and I'm really excited. I look at this not just as a wildlife study, but as much a portrait. Gorillas, oftentimes they're identified by the wrinkles in their nose, if you can say like a nose print, and I've got to get it right. So I want to make sure that I capture her as well as I can. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into this gorilla piece. I'm excited. The brush lineup that I'm starting with today, I have a number 3 Rosemary Shiraz Filbert. I have a number 3 Eclipse long filbert. I have a number 8 Rosemary Shiraz filbert, a number 5 Shiraz filbert, and a domed filbert red dot. And this little puppy right here is a wonderful sable synthetic. Almost can't tell the difference. Seriously, it's that good. And you know, I'll probably add some more brushes, especially when I get into the detail, like I'll be pulling out a sword brush when I get into the long fur. But this is what we're starting with today. I'm starting out by mixing indanthrene blue and the ivory black and just kind of putting in the dark values. And I just need to get the blocked in shape of this gorilla. So I'm starting in with some of the dark values. I mix, to make this lighter gray color, I'm mixing King's Blue and raw umber, and just kind of, you know, I need to be able to see where her skin is. And basically the gorilla is, there's a lot of purples and blues and grays, and so it's a lot of the same colors but in different value. So I'm just kind of blocking in just the shapes, and it's the very early stage. Interesting enough, I'm looking at this sketch while I'm doing this voiceover, and I can see how wonky I have drawn the eyes in. Way too much angle there, and you'll see we fix those as we move along. But you can see how much indanthrene blue is in that chin area. You know, you have a black animal, but to do the black fur, you know, you do use a lot of blues, and this is where I'm really checking the eyes and going, yikes. I checked the angles against my photo reference and saw how bad my angles were on my eyes. And that's okay. We get to fix that in a little bit. Now you see she's starting to actually take form, and I've got she's got an arm in the foreground, and I'm just going to really loosely put this in. I don't want a lot of detail in that arm that I'm painting now, and I won't do much more than what you see there because I'm wanting to create that depth. And I'm just going to lightly block in the arm that is closest to us, the shoulder here. Again, I'm just using one of my Shiraz filberts. That's the number 8, I believe. And nice little brush, by the way. That is a really fun brush. I'm using some of the violets, and okay, there's the King's Blue going in, and that's a great color to add the shine. You can see the photo reference there on the left. And so I'm just putting in the light values where I see them, the dark values where I see them, and no details going in yet. I am just popping that color in and letting this girl take form. To get out my domed filbert. This is the Rosemary Domed Filbert. It's a red dot. And why I like this little particular brush is it's great for blending. And I'm just, you know, I would need to just soften up these edges. I am using the surface that I'm painting on, the substrate happens to be a gessoed panel. And it's a super smooth gessoed panel. And I just kind of did a very, you know, I just grounded it with a little bit of umber and ivory black. And so I've got this super smooth surface, which is wonderful for detail. And I'm using this little brush because it is a very soft brush. And when you're working on a very slick surface, it's easy to let the paint slip, if that makes sense. It will oftentimes not feel like it wants to stick. So that's why this brush is going to help me just kind of lay it in there and create the shape without having a lot of brush lines. Now, it's very interesting to look at the structure of the gorilla. You know, they do have very similar to us, even though the bridge of the nose is rather flat. You know, we do have that form. So she has little wrinkles right here between her eyes, and I'm trying to create the form, even if it is somewhat exaggerated. I'm doing this as much for me to be able to understand. I am a visual person, obviously, but sometimes if the photo reference doesn't really offer the view that I need for me to understand the structure, I'll create the structure and then work around it. So I still see that my eyes are a bit wonky, and you'll see how I'll work this in. I'll end up raising that eye on the right up quite a bit. The color that I'm using for the actual iris of this gorilla is a combination of cadmium red, light, and burnt sienna, and a little tiny bit of ivory black. Now, they do have interesting pupils. They're brown, but they're that reddish brown, but they do have a lot of dark brown around them. So I'm using a paint scraper just to give me some shape. And so it looks like I did these white lines, I was actually just scraping the paint off. Paint scrapers are neat tools, folks. If you don't have one, get you one. So I'm able to correct and move as I go along. And yeah, so this is really fun. And of course, if you understand as far as the field identifying markings, or when scientists are watching these animals, the nose print, believe it or not, is as much like a fingerprint. No two gorillas have the same. So they will look at nose prints and handprints if you can get that close. So they really do study the noses of these animals. So I've got to get this right. And so to me, that's why I look at this as a portrait. I actually consider this a portrait. Now you see I've gone ahead and raised, I've already kind of covered out where I originally had the eyeball penciled in, and it was kind of crazy how low I had it. So I've raised it up, and I'll be putting in her eye here in just a bit. Still not wanting to put in a lot of detail into the eyes, but I do want to get the shape in. And I've actually changed her eye on this side also. So both eyes have been changed as far as positioning from when I first started with the original pencil sketch. But I'm getting closer and closer. And that's the wonderful thing about oil paints. It's very forgiving. You can move things around. And also these slick surfaces like this gesso paneled also allows you to scrape paint off or move it around a little bit more easily too. Now I'm getting ready to do just the background. I wanted to make sure I had paint on the first day over the entire canvas. So I want to fade out and blur, if you will, some of this background. So as you'll see, I'll go through here and just kind of block it in like I saw on my reference. I want to keep it as close to the actual reference that my client provided, because this is a memory. This is something that she actually saw, and also her sister, and this will be a gift for her sister. So I want to make sure that I recreate the memory that she had through this photo reference in this painting. So I'm trying to even get my foliage pretty close to the background. And again, I just want it to fade and be soft and airy and ethereal, all those good words for a background. I am using my, it's the little filbert, the Shiraz filbert that I'm using here. And you can see here's a little detail of how I try to blend that edges. I do not want any sharp edges, but I do want to create the look that I see in the reference. And by getting close, you can see how I'm using this little Mundy mop. Now that Mundy mop right there, that brush is great for blending. It's made from goat hair, excuse me, and it does blend well. So I'm just kind of getting in there and, I want the little lights and all the backgrounds that I see here to be soft. And so, except for the two leaves in the immediate foreground, everything is just kind of going to be almost like an abstraction of light, I suppose. And I'm just kind of blending, and that Mundy mop's doing a good job. It is a super, super great little blending brush. So I'm doing the application mainly with the small Shiraz filbert, and then doing a lot of the blending with the Mundy mop. After I've gone in there, I'm going to go in now with the ebony filbert, and the ebony brush is made of mongoose hair. It's a very soft brush, and it's also doing a little bit more blending, and I needed the larger surface area of this larger brush to just, I didn't want to focus my blend. I really wanted it to be so soft, in fact, that you can't tell where one thing starts and stops. And so I can always go back and tighten up some areas that I need, but I'd rather have a super, super soft background. And so that's what the ebony brush is doing for me. It's also blending, just like the Mundy mop, but in a larger situation here. And then, I just took the back end of my brush to do some detail on the leaf. You can, your little pointy brush back handle is also a good little tiny scraper for details if you need it. Yeah. So I believe I'm on the second day, and I am just kind of reaffirming some of the areas that I hit the first time, and I'm still, believe it or not, in the blocking in stage. I'm happy with the background, except, for the two immediate leaves. I'll go back later, but I am still tweaking, still changing shape. You can see her front upper and lower jaw have come out a little bit further from her face, and just doing some more detail. Again, the main colors I'm using here, folks, is King's Blue and Raw Umber, both by Michael Harding, and the Ivory Black is by Winsor Newton, and I also have some Dioxazine Purple, Winsor Newton, Ultramarine Blue, and the Andantharine blue that I've been using is actually Richardson paint. And I'm checking my angles, and I see how this one area of the face has to come out further. And so I'll constantly check my angles against my photo reference. And that's because, as you see, when I started this piece, it's the sketch that I do is a very rough sketch. Now, some artists do a more refined sketch that that it in itself can be a completed painting. For me, not so much. I don't do that. I like watching my paint form. It's almost like sculpting. I feel like I'm pulling it out of that canvas or the substrate that I happen to be working on. Now they have a lot of texture in their skin, and I'm using my dark values to create the wrinkles and lines, and then I'm going back in with my lighter value of mainly King's Blue and the Umber to do the highlights. And when I really need them highlight lit, I'll go ahead and use a little bit of the titanium white as well. now it's the third day, it's Monday, and I'm checking this out, see how my angle needs to come out a little bit further. It comes out a lot considerably there, checking those angles against the reference. And it's nice that you can see the reference just peeking out there. And I know how now I have to bring certain parts of the body out a little bit more. I will change the angle of my substrate to accommodate my hand because my arm works better in a particular direction, so I can bring that out a little bit further. And I'm using my dagger brush to do the hair. As you know, I do love my dagger brush. So I'm using a little bit of a lighter value because it's going to be hitting that light, and then I can use my darker value on top of that. So that the little edges are actually the lighter value. Does that make sense? I hope so. Now I'm starting to have fun here because I'm using the greens that are, the skin, her skin has a sheen to it. It's very shiny and it reflects the green light that's bouncing around her since she lives in a jungle, right? So I am getting to use some green highlights, which is really fun. I'm putting in the wrinkles, and that's always fun. It's putting all the fine detail in here. And just creating her face. This is her character, and this is what I enjoy doing. And I'm using a very small Eclipse filbert. This is a 0, I believe, 0 or a 1. But anyway, I'm using this Eclipse filbert to put in all these little details. So you can see the greens are coming out in her face, and it's just the reflected light from her habitat. can really see here that I'm using, I'm going back and forth between my light and dark values, and my deep part of the wrinkles is a combination of ivory black and indanthrene blue. And then I go back in with my lighter value, which is mainly the King's Blue and raw umber. So that mixture is pretty much used the most throughout this whole painting. But you know, when I do see some green shine, I take it. I'll run with it. I put that green in when I can get it. But you can see that's basically the whole process of doing all the little wrinkles and all the little folds in her, around her eyes. And they have a very small iris compared to their eye shape. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm putting a lot of green in her eye, and it's mainly just reflective light. Trust me, she does not have green scleras, but it's just all this reflected light that I see that's in the reference. And it will all make sense in the end, but when you see it happening here, it kind of looks kind of freaky. But indeed, this is how her eyes appeared to me from the reference. And I'm doing her upper lids and her, you know, they have mainly the very same structure of the eye that we have, and so it's not that different. You can see there's a lot of light pinks and pinky grays going in here too, and I think you're getting a feel of how I'm creating the texture of her skin. This is the fun stuff, guys. This is what I enjoy the most. It's when I get to the detail stage. And knowing that I've got to have these dark values in, and then, you know, lighten them up here and there. And I keep playing back and forth between the light and dark values. So I'm going in with the number 3 Shiraz, putting in that ear, and just being very mindful of the little highlights and textures in the gorilla's fur. Now, they do have this black fur that shines very purple and blue, and then when the light's really catching it, it almost has a white sheen to it in some areas. And that's the fun stuff, guys. I am using my little dagger brush and doing each hair as I go, and I want to, you know, I don't want to be nuts here, but oh, this is the fun part. I love to get nuts and do all the detail. They have these little, I guess almost like, I don't know if they're whisker tracks, but they're these little kind of little pinpoint specks on the front of their face, and I know they use their lips a lot like a lot of animals do. They're very sensitive, so I'm sure that those almost little whiskers help them navigate their leaves that they're eating, since they're primarily vegetarians. Now, forgive the bright afternoon sunlight coming in through my studio, but there is a lot of bright dappled light on her fur. Now, at this point, I'm just trying to get in all these little hairs, and folks, I believe I'm finished, and know that I enjoyed every single stroke of this girl. I had so much fun, and I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, give me a thumbs up. I appreciate you. And here we have it, all done. So here you can see, this is an 8x10. This happens to be on a gessoed panel. And I'm going to paint the edges for her because my client did ask if I had an easel, like a little tabletop easel, so she can display it that way. And she can frame it. It's up to her how she wants to do this. So, but I really had fun. And of course, as you know, the eyes are what I enjoy painting the most. and hers are just gorgeous. And it was fun because I got to blur out the background here and, you know, just kind of do a couple little leaves that were in a little bit sharper focus, and the reflection of the green that's actually in her face, just the colors bouncing around. It's fun when you get to use, you know, you see all the King's blue and purples and ultramarine blues. There's a lot of blues and purples, and believe it or not, even greens in this little gorilla's face. And I thoroughly enjoyed every stroke of this painting. So, and if you did too and enjoyed watching the video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe. And yeah, if you have any questions about anything that I covered in today's video, go ahead and leave it in the comment section. I'll be glad to get to you, and I always get to you right away. Trust me, I'm good like that. So yeah, and if you have maybe even a suggestion of something you'd like to see in the future, go ahead and leave that in the comment section as well. So until next time, from obviously very sunny Kingsport, Tennessee, I want to thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.